Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am repressing and frankening some stuff. But first I have laid down a newspaper and then I've put another sheet of paper over the top. So I'm repressing this blush, this bronzer and an eyeshadow. But first I'm just going to repress the eyeshadow that is in my pan that palette. I don't know why I always keep this sponge tip applicator, but I never use it. So I am repressing this bronze shade. It's on the edges. I'm just scraping it from the edges like very carefully, just so that I don't spill it all over the place. Like I don't want to get it mixed with that deep sort of purple shade. It's just like less messy this way. Some people tend to like scrape it off and put it in a different container and then mix it with alcohol, but I find it's just like not necessary in this case because there's like very little product. So I'm just directly pouring alcohol in here and just like mixing it again with a toothpick and then just mixing it. Honestly, I've been putting off of repressing this shade for a long time. I do not know why, but it was like so hard to get this eyeshadow off of the edges, but I was still using it like that. I think I poured a little too much of the alcohol, so I'm just gonna let it sit for a while. While that eyeshadow is settling, I'm just going to scrape the product here in the bronzer side and then on the blush side. I really prefer using a toothpick to scrape it because I can really get in the edges and I really find it less messy, like the product doesn't spill everywhere. So I just made it like really fine powder and I'm doing the same on the blush side as well. As you can see that very less powder is spilling outside the pan, and that's why I prefer to start scraping off with like a toothpick, and then if it's still bumpy I would just break it down with a spatula. I think I'm gonna do that here because the chunks were like a little too big and I have already gotten all the product off of the edges, so just gonna mill it down further with a spatula because it has a little weight to it, and I think I can like get somewhat fine powder with this. I have pushed all the product towards the center because I just don't want to get it stuck to the edges, because then once I use up the center then the story is gonna be the same and I do not want that. So yeah, here just pouring some alcohol and just mixing. This time I am very careful that I'm not pouring too much because we did pour a little too much in the eyeshadow case. So here I'm just starting off with like a little and then adding more alcohol if required. I don't like spraying alcohol directly onto the powdered product because then it just flies everywhere. So what I've done is I've taken like an empty serum bottle that had a dropper and I transferred my alcohol into that bottle and I just use a dropper for like a more controlled pouring of the alcohol. They are mixed well, I guess. Now I'm just gonna repress the eyeshadow first because I think it's settled, and then I'm just gonna use the same paper towel to repress the blush and the bronzer. And as you can see, there's very little product that got transferred onto the paper towel, so that's why I let it sit for some time, because I didn't want like all of that liquidy stuff to get stuck to the towel. Yeah, I just didn't want to take any chances. Now the towel is just stained, but it doesn't have a lot of actual product stick to that one, so we're not wasting any product, so I'm not cheating. I'll be using like most of this, like almost 99.99% of the product up. I think only a little amount of product got transferred to the towel. So repressing is done and I'm gonna let that dry, and my plan is to make a face powder or like a powder foundation from these eyeshadows, like not all of them but some selected eyeshadows, like these warmer and peachy shades. They're really light. Let's swatch because I think they're gonna mix well together to make like a decent powder foundation shade for me. I'm mostly gonna use that as a finishing powder or like a setting powder. Oh, they make a nice shade. Now let's just start scraping. So in order to scrape these eyeshadows, I'm not using toothpick because I don't want to get the product off of edges. I'm just using like a spatula and evenly scraping the top layers of the eyeshadow because I don't want to hit the pan, but I just want to like, get the product from the top as well. And I think spatula is a nice tool to get the top layered scraped off somewhat evenly. I'm gonna scrape a lot more, but first I just want to get this transferred, and for that I'm gonna pour it on a piece of paper. I just want to see like how much more product I need to scrape off. This is like an empty pan from my one of the essence powders. The pan is magnetic, so I kept it. I scraped more top layers to flatten the surface of the eyeshadows. They all look nice and smooth. My goal is to crush it up as much as I can. I just want to make it a real fine powder, just so that all of the different eyeshadows they mix well together. There are still a lot of tiny bumpy pieces in here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna tap on the paper, just giving it a little vibration. As you can see, all of those big pieces are kind of like moving on to a side, and I'm crushing those big pieces. I mean, it's not going to get like a really fine powder as you would get in like a blender, but it's still good enough. I don't support Morphe anymore, but this palette was a gift from my best friend. She's not that much into makeup, so she just went to Sephora and bought it for me, which I really appreciate. So I'm just gonna keep it with me. And I picked up residue from the paper and swatched it on the hand. It looks good. And it's time to pour alcohol, so I'm just making a little hole in between this powdered heap so that when I pour alcohol it just stays in between the powder and it's easier to mix that way. I started out with little alcohol at a time. I was really surprised to see how deep the pans are because I did scrape a good chunk, but it did not hit pan at any point. And I think it's gonna take a while for this palette to get used up, but I think I will be using it for frankening purposes for the most part. This palette mostly has browns and it also has a few pinks, so I think I can franken a contour or a bronzer and some blushes out of this one. But right now I am already working on a franken blush and a franken bronzer. Those are the ones that I just repressed in the beginning of this video. I've been working on that Franken blush for almost over an year now, and it is nowhere near end. And I poured a little bit more alcohol in here. I am mixing this a lot more than my repressing session because it has different eyeshadows and I really want to get all of them mixed up. I'm trying to do the best I can here. I wasn't planning to put that third shade in here because it is a shimmer shade, so I did not want to make it like shimmery, but since rest of the four shades are all matte, and I decided to put a little bit of that shimmer shade in here just to give it like a little sheen. And now we're just repressing it. I got almost all of the product stuck on the spatula and some leftovers from the piece of paper, so I think in here as well I'm not wasting a lot of product. Maybe a product I'll use up in like a single use, but yeah, not more than that. It repressed really well, so I'm really excited to use it. I'm just cleaning my tool here, and this is all of the products that we repressed and frankened today. I will be inserting a pictures at the end of this video on how those products are looking after drying. I'll be rolling this face powder in my Frankenly My Dear pan project pan, and I think I will swatch it in that video. Here it's looking a little bit darker than it actually is just because it's wet right now, and our repressed eyeshadow is looking like it's doing fine. And this is how all of these products are looking like after drying out. And that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a wonderful day or night depending on when you're watching. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, take care. Bye.